Here we have a lightsaber. Not as clumsy or random as a blaster. A more elegant weapon for a more civilized age. Yeah, I'm aware that the lines uttered in the film used a blue one, but the batteries don't work on the other ones that I have, so. Anyhow, little look at the collection here. Yeah, there's Grogu. There's an Indiana Jones hat. Got that from Blockbuster many years ago. A little Ralph McQuarrie concept art action figure there. There's quite a bit more of this, but it was so cluttered I decided to clean it all up and put it away. McFarlane Dragons. Oh look, Conan. What do we got over here? These are basically the bookcases. One of a few. More over there. There's some more over there, but they're in the dark. I ain't even going to show you those. So let's go sit these down here. And I look god-awful in this. Oh, I guess that's not too bad, but I don't know. It could use a little work. Anyway, so we're going to talk about Star Wars today. First things first. So if there is any more divisive a movie series than Star Wars, I don't know what it is. I used to, you hear the term George Lucas ruined Star Wars, and people think that's the prequel trilogy, the sequel trilogy. I had to listen to that stuff in 1980 with the so-called untouchable, The Empire Strikes Back. And you had to hear things like, what were those Walker things that put a rope around it and it fell down, and look, Darth Vader's his father? That's so stupid. And look who's a wimp on Dagobah. He's all whiny. That was The Empire Strikes Back. Go to Return of the Jedi. Oh, the Ewoks? George Lucas ruined Star Wars with the Ewoks. And so, my theory is that these people grew up, had kids, raised them to be themselves, and then they got the internet, and now all of you get to hear what I heard about Star Wars when everybody thinks it was this untouchable, perfect thing, and they weren't. People pissed all over Star Wars, calling themselves fans. But I don't believe in the term. It's called the toxic fandom. I just think it's toxic people who have a big target. You don't see people getting online on nearly a daily basis and starting up, oh, here's Battlefield Earth and why you shouldn't like it. Or Gorilla at Large, or the Superman 3 and 4, Jaws 3 and 4, and 2, even if you didn't like that one. No one goes after those because those are not big enough targets. I've been online with people, and for example, you have the Arnold Schwarzenegger Predator movie. It had a sequel, Predator 2, and that's a horrible movie. But I ran into somebody who liked Predator 2 more than Predator. And I asked him about it. And he's like, well, I just like it better. Okay. Well, I didn't go pursuing him without end and starting up threads and conversations all the time about why this idiot likes Predator 2 more than Predator. I don't get it. Maybe I have my limits and are just different, but it turns into that meme. It's this kid across a table looking very angry and saying, you better stop liking things that I don't like. I don't get it. I do not understand. Please move on. If Jar Jar Binks still bothers you, seek help. Anyhow, way back in 1977, I became one of George Lucas's new millions of children. And I had I still have them somewhere, the action figures that came out before the movie, and as part of the marketing scheme. I smuggled one into the theater the first time I was in the theater, a little stormtrooper. I was a little scared kid. I was only 5 years old, and so it was dark, and it was big and loud, and so I only kind of half paid attention to the original movie called Star Wars before it was called A New Hope at the time. And I lost the Stormtrooper action figure. I don't think I ever bought another one, but so the years later, I wasn't much of a reader, and I was handed the novelization to Star Wars. This is the actual one I got handed in 1981, I think this was, so I was 10 years old at the time. And as you can see, it's been well read. So I have replaced it just if I decide to pick it up and flip through it. What's interesting about this little book, a Star Wars book, I'm going to pick up here. They had a concept artist named Ralph McQuarrie. If you've ever seen, or in case you haven't, here's a little sample here. And this vast, epic-looking painting, there's lots like this, Ralph McQuarrie. And what it is this book is sort of written in a way that makes you feel like that looks. It had just this subtle, epic attitude towards it. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and naturally they became heroes. It just does this nice little space opera, and there's a couple hundred pages worth of book there. I read it many times over the next few weeks that I had gotten it. I am quite certain that I came across I saw the Empire Strikes Back film in 1980. So after that, I found a little treasure in a flea market in Kentucky, looking through a box, and I found this thing, Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I'm like, what is this? Was this a movie? Did I miss it? I didn't know what the heck this was. And sure enough, I was like, is this actually a Star Wars thing? It looks like Star Wars. What's going on there? And I did get it, and of course I did read it, and this is what they call the first expanded universe book. Oh look, it's split in half too. This kind of features something that were left over as part of original concepts where good guys and bad guys were running around with blasters and laser swords, and you got the Force via an object called the Kyber crystal, and that's what that little red glowy thing is right there. This is adventures of Luke and Leia stranded on a planet called Mimban. And interesting enough, many years later, I had the most wonderful fan service moment. After the century had turned over, I was playing Knights of the Old Republic 2 on Xbox, I do believe. And I defeated a Sith Lord in combat, and I looted his body, and sure enough, a Kyber crystal was in there. Nowadays, the Kyber crystal, most recently, I believe, came up in the movie Rogue One and was used as part of the firing mechanism of the Death Star. And I hope that sun goes away, because I did not play, and I saw the clouds and thought I was okay, but oh well, you're going to get a little glare here. The novelization of The Empire Strikes Back, I don't know, it's just kind of there. There's nothing particularly special about it, the way it's written. This, though, Return of the Jedi, with that amazing cover art, which, by the way, look. Ta-da! Got that on a t-shirt, and it's got the opening scroll of the film on the back of the t-shirt. Cool as hell right there. I always wanted to get a tattoo of that, but I thought it looked like reproductive organs from a distance or something. I didn't want to get that permanent. Plus, I'm always wearing something Star Wars anyway, so I thought it was a bit much to maybe get a tattoo or something. This is really subtle in its emotional depth because Luke has to deal with quite a bit, as we know. You all saw the film. And it really hits home here a little bit in just these few words in here. The prose in this are outstanding. Things like if when the executor hits the Death Star, it says the Death Star rocked for the first time. The opening lines in the book. I came across this on vacation, visiting relatives in Kentucky again, and I saw it in a store, and I'm like, wait, the movie hasn't come out yet. Why is it? Who wants to know what happened before the movie comes out? So I blood. I thought, well, I'll just wait till the movie comes out and I'll read the book. Well, down in Kentucky, not a lot to do, and so I thought, well, what can it hurt? I'll just read the first page. The first page is amazing. And so I thought, well, yeah, nothing to do. Yeah, just read the first chapter or something. No big deal. Read the whole damn thing. I spoiled for the movie. It's one of those moments where you as a reader, you know you've had that moment where you read something, you read the book or part of the book, and and nobody around you knows what you just went through, the emotional turmoil and happiness you just went through with this. Outstanding read. And it just made me want to see the movie more, and that's just all there is to that. Sometime later, in the early 90s, Star Wars got a bit of a renewal through a series of books, which I do not own anymore, called Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn. And everybody went crazy for these books. I did not. I did get them. I read all three, and I finished all of them. Just didn't thrill me. And like for example, in the beginning, it's like 5 years after Return of the Jedi, Han and Luke, in the beginning of the book, are on the run in some station or ship or something, and Han suggests to Luke, why don't you use the Force to levitate this thing to block that door? Oh, Luke didn't know what to do. So many years ago, he failed to get the X-Wing out of the mud on Dagobah. He just wasn't sure if he could do it. I thought, no. This guy, in Return of the Jedi, goes off to face the two most powerful beings in the galaxy, one of which is his father, which he has to deal with, and he gets out of there triumphant. And this many years later, he hasn't improved in any way, shape, or form. And so it's just, strike one among many strikes. I almost hate to say it because from everything I've ever heard, Timothy Zahn is one of those people that if there were more like him on the planet, we'd all be better off. He's like one of the nicest people ever. But I just could not enjoy those books at all. Happily, at the same time, a comic series came out called Dark Empire. And this one blew me away. This was wonderful. And right off the bat, instead of, oh no, I'm not sure I can do that, here comes Luke Skywalker. And a walker comes walking up to him. He deflects its shots, and then with the Force, knocks it down. That's way better. I like that so much more. Also in this, so we see here this tube, it's a wormhole, and it comes out of nowhere and sets down and starts destroying everything, and Luke actually enters it and gets taken away. As you can see there, he just says, I'll go with it. This was what was called a Force Storm, and this was the original version of it. And what happens here is that later on in video games, you could use your Force Lightning and blast things, but if you used Force Lightning, it just hit everything in the room, but it didn't open up this wormhole. Even when we finally see a Force Storm in the 9th chapter of Star Wars, when the Emperor uses it, it hits a bunch of ships just like a bunch of lightning. So they got rid of the idea of this damaging wormhole and just lightning everywhere for the Force Storm. But that's what the original Force Storm was a wormhole. The thing about Dark Empire, so everybody wonders sometimes, well, why did George Lucas make Leia Luke's sister? And that wasn't supposed to be. What was supposed to happen was Return of the Jedi was supposed to end with Luke only facing Darth Vader. And he might have turned to the dark side right then or sometime after. But either way, it was just going to be Darth Vader. Then afterwards he goes looking for a battling Imperial remnants, but he was looking for this long-lost sister who was not supposed to be Princess Leia. From what I heard, and it's probably a contributing factor, it's not the entire story, Lucas, his personal life was a little messed up, family, and he needed to tie things up, and the best he could do is to say, all right, they're the siblings, this is the original story, I just got to tie it up like this because I don't know if I'm going to go back and make more. And so you got the ending that you did with including the Emperor and his end there. That, by the way, came out of an original Bible story where you have on Judgment Day the Antichrist, or the devil himself, with his right hand man called Abaddon, who at the last minute betrays him, picks him up, and throws him in a pit. Later on, this Abaddon would become a place, and then the character Abaddon got replaced by the Archangel Michael, who throws the devil into a pit for 1,000 years or something. I can't remember exactly. But that was where that kind of ending came from. So it wasn't just, I'll have him throw him down the thing just for laughs because there was a shaft there. There was a symbolic point to it. At the same time that this came out, you know what, more, I should say too, so people complained that when Disney got a hold of Star Wars and made the sequel trilogy, that, well, they didn't follow what Lucas wanted them to do. Well, they actually did originally, because but Lucas had new ideas he wanted to present to them. A guy and a gal and a teen doing things in the Star Wars galaxy, which was probably Rey and her friends, but still it was going to be different. But this was the original idea, that when, like I said, Luke was going to fall to the dark side anyway. The Emperor was to be fought in Episode 9, and this long-lost sister and Luke Skywalker stand before the Emperor and defeat him. Well, that's what's in this, but we got the ending that we got in Return of the Jedi, so it's Luke and Leia who stand before the Emperor and defeat him. And all Disney did was do this, but they replaced the long-lost sister with Rey, that she fills that role, and Kylo Ren fills Luke's role, and they stand before the Emperor. But there in the movie, if you've seen it, of course, kind of plucks Kylo out of the way for a bit, and Rey gets the actual final victory, is what occurred there. But they really did follow the basic original idea that Lucas had in mind with that. A little after Dark Empire came out, this wonderful comic series takes place 4,000 years previous to Star Wars, called Tales of the Jedi. Things like the lightsabers are a little bigger, the spaceships are a little slower, but otherwise it's still kind of the same. The artwork in this stuff is outstanding, but there are a couple things. Something I noticed long ago, so a little quick one. So we have this guy here, this bad guy, Warb Null. See that pose? Decades later, this book comes out. See the similarity? Somebody borrowed a pose and put it on the cover of that. But that's not what I wanted to show you. What I really wanted to show you, this is part of the Tales of the Jedi. So we see this guy here, Exar Kun, and a double-bladed lightsaber right here. This is in 1995. And one of the coolest little panels I've ever seen right there, him lighting this lightsaber up for the first time. Do you like the improvements I've made? So this is the first official shot of a double-bladed lightsaber in the Star Wars lore, and I liked it so much. Where'd it go? I had that put on a t-shirt. Whee! There it is. I did put something from Dark Empire. There's a Palpatine coming out in a new cloned body there. I had to put on a t-shirt too. Anyhow, so Ray Park gets cast as Darth Maul for the Phantom Menace, and they built him this prop, this double-bladed lightsaber prop. Only thing is, if you look, it's not very big, and even in the comic, he kind of has to wield it like a baton. So apparently, Park starts fooling around with this thing, and he can't. It's kind of awkward. He can't get any leverage on it. So he asked, "Can you make this bigger?" And they did, and that's why you got the size of the lightsaber hilt that you do in the movie. And he was quite proud of adding a little bit to Star Wars lore that way. If I can recommend something else for people to look at, it's these. I just showed you one earlier. It's the Star Wars A New Hope, the art of. Actually has a script in here and goes through all the concept art throughout. There's one for each of the original. Actually, there's an art of book for every Star Wars movie. These are the ones for the original trilogy and all that in here. Then there's this beautiful thing. This is Star Wars, The Magic of Myth. And this goes through and points out all the symbology from mythology and such that are prevalent in Star Wars. The interesting thing about Star Wars, they're sort of like Looney Tunes cartoons. When you're a little kid and you watch Bugs Bunny, it's like, ooh, Bugs Bunny cartoons. But when you grow up and rewatch them a little bit, you get all the adult jokes that are throughout all those cartoons. So Star Wars is that way. In fact, George even said this publicly, that he had all this knowledge of history and mythology, but he didn't want to go too terribly in your face about it, and he just wrote it out with all that stuff in mind. And so you get this Flash Gordon cliffhanger style action adventure in space movie that subtly has all these little themes and things in it, like the Death Star not only being a dragon, but it is the labyrinth. You have the Magic Grove. You have the little people who always wind up taking you on your adventures. Threshold Guardians. Luke has to get past his uncle. He has to get past the Sand Person. He has to go slay the dragon. He has to get beyond all these things to become the hero. And can't recommend that enough for reading on that matter. One other little thing. There's a proper definition for Star Wars in genre, and I'll die on this hill. A lot of people will dismiss Star Wars as space fantasy. And I think I'd be okay with calling it that, except it's with real derision and venom that people do that. Like, because it's well, even Carl Sagan, matter of fact, he was on Johnny Carson, and Carson had asked him, the Star Wars movie had come out some months ago or something, and Sagan talked about it. I don't remember if he liked it or not, but he did end by saying maybe they have an obligation to get it right. And as much as I love Carl Sagan like anybody, that's just incorrect at all. This is storytelling. Just because it's in space doesn't mean you have to get it right. I don't even know what in the world that's supposed to mean. You have to follow the laws of physics just because you decided it's a space movie. Fantasy, I think, has a very definite definition in that it's magic stuff. Symbolically magic stuff, a wizard and magic swords and talismans and all that stuff, but not literally in universe. One of the biggest influences of Star Wars was called Lensman by Doc E.E. Smith. And if you look at Lensman, it's spaceships and space battles, and they got these little discs they keep on them that enhance their psychic powers. I wouldn't call the Force magic at all. It's either psychic powers or cosmic power. And if you don't think there's anything different about those things, the Force isn't what Merlin the Magician does or Doctor Strange does. It's not the same thing. It's more akin to Professor X does with his mental powers, or the Silver Surfer and Galactus and the like do with their cosmic powers. It's just not the same thing. All fiction, but too many people want to put it down and use the term space fantasy like, it's just space fantasy. No, its proper term, like Lensman, is space opera. Sometimes they'll cite Star Trek as an example of something closer to real science fiction. Never mind the gravity control, faster than light drive, and space gods. Somehow Star Trek isn't space opera. It's not space fantasy. It's somehow science fiction or hard science fiction. No, it's not. I would call Star Trek space opera like I would call Star Wars space opera. Maybe because of the technobabble. Maybe they try a little bit harder to explain things, but I don't think it's that drastically different in terms of what genre they belong in. When you apply the actual definitions of the words, there actually is not a lot of space fantasy per se. The comic book series Saga, literally, it's weird out in space and there's magic. We cast spells for powers. They call it magic. It's space fantasy. There's a book I'm going to read next, unless I've gotten this wrong just from looking it over. Takes place in space. That is a magic hologram sigil. This looks to be a space fantasy, wizards in space. I don't care for someone telling me, well, thematically, well, it doesn't matter. It's in universe, not magic that's going on in Star Wars, even though I find Star Wars to be very magical. Been with it since 1977. I was 5 years old, and I'm 52 years old now. I do occasionally rewatch the movies, but they've been with me so long I don't have to do it on a regular basis. But even now when I do it, it's been some of the newer ones I'll watch, especially Rogue One, which was just outstanding. By the way, don't get this wrong. How many Star Wars movies has there been? Well, we got 9, right? Episodes 1 through 9. I'm sorry, episodes 1 through 9. Then we got Rogue One, so that makes 10. There was another one. What was it? In theaters. The first few episodes of the Clone Wars were released as a movie. George Lucas liked the way it looked so much. He said, we need to put this in theaters, and he did. Well, when I went to see it, I was the only one in the theater. But still it counts. It was released in theaters as a movie. So there have been 11 theatrical releases of Star Wars movies. Get that little fact correct. So that's all I wanted to do for Star Wars, my little take on it. As an old man now, 52 years old, I was 5, so 47 years I've been a Star Wars fan. Well, there's a lot more gray hair. Hair lights back to here since then. Oh well, there you go. Anyway, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like and subscribe, and have a great day. Thank you.